We've been on a bit of a YouTube hiatus this spring as we've been preparing for our wedding, and this is one of the things we've been up to, building a custom-made wedding arch from a tree on our property. This video walks through the whole project from log to wedding and everything in between. Check out the link below for a set of plans we made for this arch that you can download from our website to follow along in case you have a special day of your own coming up. We made sure to leave out all the mistakes we learned the hard way.
Clamps are not strong enough.
Losing an eyeball right before the wedding. Oh my God.
This morning I'm starting a new project, and it's not like any of the house projects that I've been working on recently. I'm gonna be building our wedding arch for our wedding in a couple months. The special thing though is I'm going to be using these logs that came off of our property. I'm taking these to a neighbor's house. His name is Dale. He's the neighbor of my mom's farm, and he has a sawmill set up and a kiln set up. He's gonna be milling these up for me, and I'm gonna be building a wedding arch out of them. Yesterday we had the tree guys here helping do some storm cleanup. And I identified some pretty nice looking logs that I brought up here to the landing to load onto the trailer. I decided I could only use these two, and I'm sure I've got my little utility trailer quite overloaded. It's a 3,500 pound gross trailer, but the trailer weighs 1,200. So I can haul 2,300 pounds. And these are some pretty hefty, I think, hickory logs. They're either hickory or oak. I can't really tell. If you're a tree expert, maybe you can identify from this bark. But the big one's roughly around 13 feet long, and the smaller one is like probably 15 feet. Couple ratchet straps later, I think we're ready for the road. I can already tell by the way my truck is sitting that this trailer is loaded with more of the weight back than it should, so this is gonna tend to want to wag on the road. Luckily, it's only about 6 miles of all back roads to Dale's, so we should be okay. I'm gonna take it slow. I wanted to talk a little bit about why I wanted to build a wedding arch for our wedding, and well, it's not that complicated. I mean, I like to build stuff, and I thought this would be really special to use some wood from our property to make something that will be commemorated forever on photos and videos. And a kind of secondary benefit I've already talked to Elena about is she wants to use this wedding arch as a garden entry arch in the future. So it will be repurposed. This will not end up on Facebook Marketplace for $20 trying to get rid of some random piece of wedding decor after we're done. So I think that'll be kind of special, and it'll be even cooler that we are making it out of wood from our own property. But rather than letting these beautiful logs just sit on the floor of the woods until they start rotting or end up cutting them up for firewood, we're actually gonna get some use out of them. All right, we made it. It's good to have a neighbor like Dale. He builds some really cool stuff and does a lot of milling. He's gonna unload these things off the trailer with the skid steer right now. Well, I didn't get any film of Dale dumping this onto the trailer, but he got everything milled up. We had plenty of lumber, and those two logs, like a lot. I'm gonna have plenty of hickory to build all sorts of stuff out in the future, but definitely enough for this wedding arch. Already got the 2x8s and 2x6s unloaded into the barn here. Still have a couple more to go, and then a bunch of thin stuff for making these post caps to cap the existing steel posts coming out of the ground for the wedding arches that they use at the venue regularly. All right, got most of the stuff off. Check out these guys. Dale was telling me when he milled this, these just split right open as soon as he milled it through. This was not from drying at all. There was just that much tension stored in the wood, and I think it's because it's storm damaged wood. When it got blown down, there's just tension that got put into the wood fibers, and it split right open. Like, this gap is like a foot wide. This is all just one single board here. But I think I can at least make something out of maybe just the halves of the board. Just finish the split and it now becomes 2 boards instead of 1. All right, the time has come to finally put this wedding arch together. We're about 11 days from the wedding, so we're a little bit down to the wire, but everything's been really busy, obviously, for planning, and just need to get this done this evening. So I don't have really any solid plan. I'm kind of winging it. I've looked at some other people's DIY wedding arches to get some inspiration, and I'm kind of just sort of combine all the designs I've seen to make my own. Now this is kind of a 2-stage build. The first stage I actually did the other night. It's to cover up the existing wedding arch infrastructure that they have at the wedding venue. There's these 4 posts sticking out of the ground to accommodate their vinyl wedding arch, which we did not really like. So we need to cap those posts, and then we'll be building our arch inside those posts. Those caps are just rough cut wood caps that I made so we can sit flower pots on them, and they're at least somewhat decorative. My neighbor Dale did a great job at milling all this up. I have a huge assortment of lumber to work from. I got a lot more lumber out of these 2 logs than I was expecting, but these are like 2.5 inch thick by 6. And then those are like 2.5 by 8. And he gave me some 2x4s on the end, which I can just use for miscellaneous bracing. And I can always rip these down to any size that I need. He also made this 1x material. I'm gonna use this, I think, for the header, because I need it to be sort of lightweight and easy to maneuver up in the air. So I'm thinking I'm gonna sandwich 2 of these to make the header. Based on how this build goes, I will release plans for this. It's a pretty basic project, but I think something that does have a little bit of nuance to it because it's got to frame the actual person correctly, so the height and the width matters, and a basic set of plans would definitely help if you're not into woodworking to start with. So any lessons learned from me winging it tonight will definitely be incorporated into those plans, and I'll make sure that the end result will be a good one if you go ahead and try to build one of these yourself. I'm going to start with the base, and I think I'm going to use these big thick 2.5 by 6s or something. I just need something real heavy that we can sit on the ground. These are 12 feet long. I'm just gonna cut them in 2, and this will be sort of the anchor. Oh my gosh, this saw won't even cut through all the way. This thing is Big Mama. Yep, I'm gonna have to flip her over. Wow. Ooh. That wasn't very straight, was it? Square that one up. Numero dos. And there's our base. Not too bad. I think next we are going to do the uprights, and just by kind of when we were eyeballing it at the venue, 6'3" from the ground to the bottom of the header is what we're thinking for the upright distance. So I just gotta subtract the thickness of that thing, 2.5 inches, and then add the width of my header, which I think I'm gonna use a pair of 1x8s for that. And I think that will make up the legs. I was thinking I was gonna use some 1xs for the upright, but I'm gonna stick with this thick 2.5 inch 2x6 material, just so that from a distance, the photos have a nice big bold arch. I don't want 2 little skinny stick looking legs, and then this big massive header sitting on top. I want it to be kind of bulky looking. Actually, I'm gonna bump it to 6'5", which would make this leg 6'10.5" with everything else factored in. That way, I can always do some minor adjustments if I go to make this thing and it is awkwardly tall or awkwardly short. I could probably end up raising it on the header or lowering it a couple inches either way if I need to. Or I got plenty of lumber. I could always cut new legs if I need to, but I'd rather not waste the lumber if possible. Now, if I was a real carpenter, I would do some real fancy joinery to make these go together, but I'm gonna go the DIY route and use a fastener, a big fastener though. It's gonna be our 6-inch SDWS screw that I've used in a lot of our framing, and run that right up through the bottom. I think I can get away with just one. I don't want to split it. This is pretty hard wood. It's hickory. It's really hard wood, actually. So I'm thinking 1 Simpson screw up the bottom, and then do my angle braces with just some 2.5 inch stainless deck screws. Should probably pre-drill for these, but I'm just gonna go for it. They're pretty darn good screws. I had a lot of good luck with these when I was framing. Got my center marked. I'm just gonna try to get through this board first. Let's see if we can hold this up in the right spot. Beauty of projects like this is, doesn't have to be perfect. It's gonna look good from afar, that's all that matters. Here's where these things really work their magic. They can suck anything really, really tight. I'll square this up before I go ahead and do that. Get that guy roughly square on there. Oh shit, that's not good. Come on now, impact barely could spin that thing back. Whew. It doesn't want to countersink it in the hickory. It'll do it in pine. Not on hickory though, oh my gosh. That is some hardwood. All right, both legs are assembled now. I just need to make the little angle braces that go on either side. Mostly just decorative. I'm sure the screw could hold it up if it really needed to, but I just eyeballed this. Gonna make two 45-degree bevels on this little guy and then use 2 deck screws, top and bottom, to fasten that to the structure. My saw doesn't have near the bevel capacity needed to do this, so I'm just gonna do straight cuts on either side and then finish it off with the Sawzall, because my saw, yeah, definitely will not go all the way through. It does 2.5 inch deep, and this is a 6-inch wide board. Okay, I wised up a bit and remembered that I have a backup miter saw here. Not my nice Makita one that's at the house build site, but it's an older one and it got the job done just barely. And I probably almost burnt the motor out cutting these bevels, but it did make it happen. So that was a lot easier than doing them all with the circular saw. And they seem to fit pretty nicely. I mean, they're gonna fit no matter what, but yeah, a couple 45s. It'll help me straighten this thing out too at the same time. Screw them in. These guys should go in a little bit easier. These are left over from our stone veneer project, the fancy stainless steel kind. Just toenail them, something like that maybe. I tried to get away with letting the screw do the countersinking, and then I broke this one off. So that just free spins, and then I wised up and got my countersink bit out. So those are a little bit more flush, and if I was really on top of my stuff, I'd countersink it even deeper and then cut a screw plug to fit in that hole, but I'm not gonna do that. I don't think you'll notice it. Check it out, beautiful. So now it's time to build the header piece, and that's just gonna be like a sandwich of 2 1-bys with a spacer in between them so that they can sort of slide on top of there, and then I'm gonna put a bolt through the center of each one of the top of these columns. I'll also do a little angle brace up here, and that will also get a bolt in that top piece. I'm kind of constrained by the 4 posts because they're like 1, 2, 3, 4. I gotta build this guy inside of those 4 posts, and then I'll have my caps out on either end with some flowers on them. But if I could have my way, I'd probably make it a little bit wider. I mean, this is like 62 inches from outside to outside, but I gotta work with what I got, so that's what it is. And it's gonna be about 7'1" to the top of that. Again, I can adjust that top header just a little bit, plus or minus a couple inches, depending on what Alina decides she wants. I settled on around a 16-inch overhang on either side, and then I'm gonna bevel that down at some undetermined angle, and that will leave me with a total length of like 94 inches that I'm cutting this to. Hopefully it's good. I don't have a whole lot of these 1-bys. Some of these arches have a little decorative angle cut on the top, and I kind of like how that looks. So I'm gonna do it here. I just came down 2 inches and then just a little 45. I played around with some other angles, but I think a 45 looks the best, especially because we have other 45-degree angles in the thing. All right, the last little pieces I need to make are the top angle braces that come up flush with the tops of these posts. Not exactly sure how I'm gonna fasten them to the side of the post, probably just a single screw in there, toenailed probably. It's probably gonna be the easiest. But I'm just gonna, again, eyeball those, see how long they need to be. And that's it for wood cutting. Then it's on to just drilling and assembling. Something like that maybe. That's 2 foot. Long point to long point. Yeah, I think that'll work. The thing will be coming like this. Don't want it to be too crazy. I'm losing daylight fast. This is what happens when you start a project at 5:30 in the evening. So I'm gonna move indoors in the barn to complete the assembly, not only because I have light, but also it's got to hang out in there for about 10, 11 days now until the wedding. I don't want this thing to get rained on and get water stains and all that. And I still have to actually stain it as well, so it needs a dry place to cure. Well, that worked and it's pretty firm, but I don't know if I'm going to trust that one little deck screw holding that on there. I think I'm going to have to do another big lag screw of some sort, but I definitely want a pre-drill for that because that's a lot coming through this little 2x. And I flushed it up to the back so that we'd have a little bit of reveal on the front. I think that'll just look nicer. This is probably the hardest part now, getting this assembled so that the header is centered perfectly between the two legs and it will sit nice and square and everything. This is sort of what I'm thinking I'm going to do. I marked center, and then I know my out-to-out dimension needs to be 62 inches to fit between my 4 posts. So I measured 31 inches each way and made a line, and then I cut a little spacer block out of the same material of my leg and put that here. I'll put that right up against my line and then finish nail through the back side. I'm gonna put the top piece on, finish nail down through it into these spacer blocks, and then theoretically I should have a good guide that I can slip this onto my legs, probably with some help from a hammer, and my legs are gonna be at the right spacing. Then it's just a matter of using a nice square to square them up and make sure the bottom is square when I go to drill my through holes. You know, on second thought, I think I'm just gonna toenail these things in with my finish nailer. And that should put me in a good spot because then I can put the back on first, set the legs inside the blocks. TJ. All right, I ran out of steam last night, but it's a new day, and now I have a helper to help me stand this up for the first time. So I clamped the header piece on. We'll see if we can lift it up. All right, there's not much holding that on, so just
Holding the top part on?
it's just that little clamp.
Why are we trying to stand it up?
Well, first you can approve the height, and then so that I can do it, I can temporarily fasten the thing. Just be gentle. I gotta watch out for this light too. Might need to scoot it back.
Ooh, bad idea.
Hold on.
Maybe it's not gonna work.
Okay.
This whole thing is falling apart. This is not.
Clamps are not strong enough.
Are you okay?
Yep.
Did it hit you in the face?
No. All right.
Okay, it'll
Plan B.
Losing an eyeball.
Plan B.
Right before the wedding. Oh my god. That literally looked like it was gonna hit you right in the eye.
Almost did, but it didn't.
Okay.
Did not contact me. All right, back to the drawing board because that didn't work out very well. I think adding another spacer block on the other side will help stabilize this too. Of course, I took my finish nailer home, so I'm gonna just toenail it in with these little guys. Actually, plan C. I threw a brace on that end, 62-inch long brace, and measured, make sure these are 62 all the way across. And I'm just gonna do a little squaring up here diagonally to see about how far I am off. 95.25. This is gonna be pretty approximate. 95.75. It's actually pretty darn square. So I think I'm actually just gonna drive a couple screws in these angle braces, maybe do a couple toenails on the big guys. I think the spacer block will help. And then I'll sandwich my other piece on top and just assemble the whole thing on the ground. That way it's just in one piece. We don't have to mess around with reassembling or disassembling anything when it's at the venue, and we can just throw it in a truck bed. All right, we're clamped up. We are ready to start putting the holes in the top. So I sort of just marked center and I just guesstimated 2 inches in from each edge. I'm gonna start with a little countersink pilot bit hole there, put some screws in here temporarily, and then one at a time just take them out and do the 1/2 inch hole and put a bolt in, just so this thing is held nice and firm while it is getting drilled. I don't want this to shift at all. I think it'll be stable enough to lift up. Brace the bottom so the legs can't walk side to side, and I think that'll work. That'll just be temporary. I'll bring my impact to wedding venue to take that off. Let's do it. Certainly not light by any means, but I think 4 guys could handle it pretty decently. Shoo. Yeah, having those braces on really helps keep everything straight. How's it look? I think the scale's pretty good. Just above our head, so it's not gonna be cutting us off in the photos or anything. Enough for 3 people, which is perfect, just us 2 and then Cecilia standing right behind us. I think it looks good. Now it's time to think about some finish options for this guy. I have 3 stains just off the shelf. I happen to just have these here at my mom's: red chestnut, dark walnut, and cherry. I'll do a couple sample splotches on this piece of offcut here. It's fairly representative of what we have for wood, and see what we like. Maybe Elena will decide just to go natural. We'll see. I only have 1 brush, so I'm just gonna go lightest to darkest and hope that I don't taint the colors too much. This rough cut raw wood is probably gonna soak this stuff in like crazy. So that's our Minwax Cherry, light for sure. Get as much out of the brush as I can. Here's the Varathane Red Chestnut. This might be even lighter actually. And then the Minwax Dark Walnut is last. This is what I kind of imagined we'd use, something darker. We'll see if we like it. Wow, okay, that goes on really dark. Supposed to let it set for like 15 minutes, then wipe it off with a rag, so we'll do that. See what we get. That's really dark. It's like black almost. Maybe I don't want that. Can take out all the tone from it. See what Elena thinks. The judge is here, and the verdict? What's the verdict?
I think we can leave it as is for now. Save ourselves some time and then do something to it before we put it in the garden entrance.
It's staying natural. Less work for me. Let's go.
I think it looks good.
Take a chance and wait. Stay light as a feather, a feather. Shake away the weight. Cut what makes you tethered.
We love how this little project turned out and can't wait to repurpose it as a future garden entrance arch to enjoy for years to come. Like I mentioned, we made a full set of plans for the arch. If you'd like some more detailed guidance in building it yourself, check out the link below. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
Unafraid.